welcome back to another baking video. Today we're baking with a special guest.
My name is Aaron.
He's my host Ed, and he's going to tell us what we're going to do today.
We are going to make an American classic, a Thanksgiving classic, pumpkin pie.
So let's see what we need.
What we need for the pumpkin pie crust is 1 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of salt, half a cup of cold Crisco shortening. For our filling, we use 3/4 cup of white sugar, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, 2 eggs, 1 can of pumpkin, and 1 can of evaporated milk.
So the first thing that we did is preheat our oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. And after that, we're going to take our flour and our salt, and we're going to mix that first. And after that, we're going to put our all vegetable Crisco shortening in.
Just going to make sure that's cold right out of the fridge. We're going to put that in one pat at a time, and we're going to use our dough cutter. We're going to cut that in, and our goal is to achieve a crumbly dough before we start putting the water in. So very straightforward, 3 ingredient pie crust.
So what we forgot to say is we also need ice cold water that we're going to put in after we put the shortening in.
Our goal is a crumbly texture about the size of a pea. So you can see that starting to happen as little pieces of shortening get cut in. And that's about the consistency we're looking for there. And now we're going to add water a tablespoon at a time. It has to be ice cold until we form a dough here. So like that. And we'll just work it with a fork. And the temperature is really the most important part here. We want to keep that shortening super cold, and that's what's going to help us give the flake to the crust. So for us, it took about 6 tablespoons of water. It's still pretty dry here, so the flour took a lot of water. So added 6 ice cold tablespoons and then kneaded it down a little bit with our hands. Then we're gonna put that into about a 1/2 inch disc, wrap it in plastic wrap, and refrigerate it for about 30 minutes or so. And while this refrigerates, we'll start working on our filling.
So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our sugar and mix it with all our spices in a small bowl.
Again, this is cinnamon, cloves, and ginger.
We're just doing that really quick. So then we're gonna take our bigger bowl and are gonna beat our eggs in there. Once we've done that, we're gonna take our pumpkin, pure pumpkin, and gonna pour it in.
We're gonna use a little more than the recipe calls for because we've got a pretty deep pie pan. We just wanna make sure we have enough product.
Now we're going to combine all of that before we're gonna put our sugar and spice mixture in. And once all of that is combined, we're gonna take our evaporated milk and pour that in. Perfect, and that's already it for the filling. Now we're gonna work on our dough.
All right, so we've rested our dough in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. It's nice and cold, keep that shortening the way it ought to be. We're gonna flour the countertop here. We're gonna turn this out onto the floured surface, and we're gonna roll out our crust.
Thank you.
And our goal is to get this just a little bit wider than the bottom of the pan. So we have just a little bit of overlap up the sides, and then we can pinch the top of the crust.
We already put butter in our pan, so the dough won't stick to it too much.
So we've rolled out the dough large enough that if we take that pan and set it on top, we can understand it'll cover the bottom of it and up the sides. So now we're gonna place the dough in our pan and get it worked in and ready for the filling. Where's my phone?
No, I think I'm good. Worked better than I expected it. Alright, so now we can make our crust up here, and everything that's too much we can just take it off and put it here where we don't have enough dough. So now that our dough is perfectly placed in our pan, we're going to press it gently down with a fork.
Maybe not that piece.
Perfect. So now that our crust is perfectly placed there, we're going to take our filling and pour it in. Perfect. So now our pie is ready to go in the oven. Alright, so now that our oven is done preheating by now, we're gonna put it in for 15 minutes by like 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and after that we're gonna turn our oven down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake it for another 40 to 50 minutes. So our pumpkin pie is done by now and we can take it out of the oven. It took about 60 minutes, maybe a little bit more, and we put a knife in there. So we could see if the knife comes out clean, then it's done. It's hot. Now we're gonna let it cool down for about 2 hours and then we can store it in the fridge. We hope you liked our recipe and that you try it. It's really good, it's really easy, and let me know what you think.